The History of United States, a lecture of the book, Part 2. With superior numbers and energy, the Americans made the most of their geographical advantages. It was fortunate for the white settlers that the Indians of North America were too few and too backward to be a grave impediment to colonization. They harassed and at times delayed it. They never really stopped it. When the first Europeans arrived, the Indians east of the Mississippi probably numbered not more than 200,000. Those of the whole continent north of Mexico certainly did not exceed 500,000. Armed only with the bow and arrow, the tomahawk and the war club, and ignorant of any military art save the ambush, they were ordinarily no match for well accounted and vigilant bodies of whites. For that matter, they had shown little capacity to subdue nature, and as they lived mainly by hunting and fishing, their resources were precarious. Most of the hundreds of tribes in the 59 recognized families north of Mexico were small and could muster no formidable war bands. The most powerful Indian organization was the five, later six, nations of the Iroquois family, whose stronghold was western New York, who had a general council and had pursued an aggressive policy which made them dreaded by the neighboring Algonquin tribes. In the southeast, the Creeks had set up another strong confederacy of the Muscogean family, for in the northwest, on the upper plains, the Sioux had established a somewhat looser organization. The struggle between the settlers and the Indians in the colonial period passes through several well-marked stages. No sooner were the first colonies planted than most of them came into sharp local conflict with small neighboring tribes. A good illustration is afforded by the fierce brief Pequot War in New England, which in 1637 ended in the complete destruction of Pequot tribe inhabiting the Connecticut Valley. Another illustration is furnished by the war between the Virginia settlers and Powhatan tribes, which began in 1622 and also ended in another Indian defeat. But as the white newcomers advanced, seizing larger tracts of land, the Indians formed extensive tribal alliances for resistance. King Philip, for example, allied several important New England tribes who fought heroically for 2 years before they were crushed, while the North Carolina settlers faced a similar combination in Tuscarora War and the South Carolina settlers in the Yamaset War. These struggles were stern and extensive and caused the whites severe losses in life and property. Finally came the phase of warfare in which the Indians found European allies. Some of the northern tribes combined with the French. Some of the southern tribes received arms and encouragement from the Spaniards. Fortunately for the English-speaking settlers, the powerful Iroquois Confederacy took a friendly attitude and lent active aid in operations against the French. In the end, the hostile Indians were decisively defeated in this third phase of warfare, as in the preceding two. The early settlers. To the whole new continent, the first British settlers came in bold groups. The ships that under Christopher Newport sailed into Hampton Roads on the 13th of May 1607 carried men alone. They led out Jamestown with a fort, a church, a storehouse, and a whole of little huts. When calamity fell upon them, Captain John Smith showed the nerve resourcefulness and energy that in the second year made him president and the practical dictator of the colony. Agriculture was slowly developed. In 1612, John Rolfe began to grow tobacco, and as it brought high prices in the London market, everyone took it up, till even the market place was planted with it. Hogs and cattle increased. Yet growth was slow. In 1619, Virginia had no more than 2,000 people. This is important. That year, 1619, was notable for three important events. One was the arrival of a ship from England with 90 young maidens who were to be given as wives to those settlers who would pay £120 of tobacco for their transportation. This cargo was so joyously welcomed that others like it were soon sent over. Equally important was the initiation of representative government in America. On July 30th, in that Jamestown church where John Rolfe several years earlier had cemented a temporary peace with the Indians by marrying Pocahontas, met the first legislative assembly on the continent, a governor, 6 councilors, and 2 burgesses, each from 10 plantations. The third significant event of the year was the arrival in August of a Dutch ship with Negro slaves, of whom it sold 20 to the settlers. While Virginia was thus shooting into vigor, a congregation of English Calvinists who had settled in Holland were making plans to remove to the New World. These pilgrims, who had been persecuted because they denied the ecclesiastical supremacy of the king and wished to set up a separate church of their own, had originally come from the village of Scrooby in Nottinghamshire. In every way they were a remarkable body. They had 3 leaders of conspicuous ability: the teacher John Robinson, a learned, broad-minded, generous-hearted graduate of Cambridge; their sage elder William Brewster, also a Cambridge man; and William Bradford, shrewd, forcible, and idealistic. Their rank and finely processed integrity, industry, and sobriety, as well as courage and fortitude. They had endured popular hostility in England. They had withstood loneliness and harsh toil in Holland. Now securing a patent to settle in America, a ship called the Mayflower, and a store of provisions, they prepared to face the rigors of the wilderness, sailing from Plymouth, 102 in number. The Pilgrims on December 11th, Old Style, 1620, landed on the Massachusetts coast. That winter more than half of them died of cold and scurvy, but the next summer they raised good crops, and in the fall of a ship brought new settlers. The Resolution never faltered. When the Narragansett chief, Canonicus, sending a bundle of arrows in a snake skin as a challenge to war, Bradford stuffed the skin with bullets and returned it with a defiant message. Then in rapid succession emerged other English colonies. The parent hive was ready to send forth its swarms. A May Day in 1629 saw the London wharves a scene of bustle and cheery excitement. 5 ships carrying 400 settlers and nearly 200 head of livestock, the largest body thus far sent across the Atlantic at one time, were sailing for Massachusetts Bay. Before the end of June, they arrived at Salem, where John Endicott and a small group of associates had planted a town the previous autumn. These people were Puritans, that is, members of the Church of England who first wished to reform or purify its doctrines and who finally withdrew from it, and they opened a great Puritan exodus. In the spring of 1630, John Winthrop reached Salem with even ships carrying 900 settlers, enough to found 8 new towns, including Boston. The Massachusetts Bay Colony grew so rapidly that it was soon throwing off branches to the south and west. Roger Williams, a minister of Salem who courageously taught the separation of church and state, with other radical views, was driven into the Rhode Island wilderness. Here in 1636 he founded Providence as a place of perfect religious toleration. In that year too, the first immigration to Connecticut began under the resolute Reverend Thomas Hooker, who moved a great part of his congregation from Cambridge westward in a body. Another notable colony sprang into existence in 1634, when the first settlement was made in Maryland under the guidance of a liberal-minded Cecilius Calvert, second Lord Baltimore. Most of the gentlemen who first went thither were, like the founder, English Catholics, while most of the common folk were Protestant. Toleration was therefore essential, and Maryland was a home of religious freedom, attracting people of varied faiths. Before long, settlers from Virginia were venturing into what is now North Carolina, a number taking up land along Albemarle Sound about 1650.